What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. So you guys know that it's always fun to kind of play make-believe a little bit with the NBA, right? And I think that that's something that I personally like to do a lot. I like to look into the potential moves that could be made in the offseason, the strategy behind them. And so today we're going to be looking at one new trade for each team that could happen this offseason. Now, before we do that, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment on my YouTube channel up to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. And one last thing before we get into it, sorry, I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys. I am traveling this week for business reasons. An NBA team has actually hired me to help them out with their offseason, which is a pretty cool thing. So I'm going to be doing some of that work this week and everything. So just know that, and I should probably be more specific, I'm helping them out with like their scouting and roster building and analytics and stuff like that. So I'm just on like an offseason contract with them. But I'm pre-recording all this stuff the weekend before so that you guys still have content to watch throughout the week. So if something happens from now until when I'm gone, it's not like a trade's going to happen, so these won't, but just know that that's why. Alrighty, so shout out Bleacher Report and Zach Buckley. We're going to be taking a look at one trade for every NBA team. We're just going to be talking about how much sense does it make? Do we think it's like plausible? Like, what could some of the effects be? You guys understand. We're just going to be breaking it down. The Atlanta Hawks first, Trae Young to the New Orleans Pelicans. I'm willing to bet that something like this happens, right? I'm on the side of I don't think you actually even need to trade Brandon Ingram to make a trade like this happen. I just don't think that you do. I think you could get either DeJounte Murray or Trae Young without having to move Brandon Ingram. I think you could put enough other pieces together to where you could make that kind of interesting. Because I feel like if the Hawks bring in a Brandon Ingram, you're still just kind of in this sense where you're paying all this money to this team that's still not that good. I feel like it'd be a lot more beneficial to start unloading contracts and stuff like that so that you could start bringing in some good young players and building towards a better future and stuff. But I do think that there's a big possibility that either Trae Young or DeJounte Murray move on and they go to the New Orleans Pelicans. I think it just makes too much sense. They have too many resources to not get something like this done, and they need a point guard. Next up, the Boston Celtics. Ooh, the Bulls are involved. Jaden Springer in the 30th pick to the Bulls for Torrey Craig. I like this move a lot. It's not like a game-breaking move or whatever, but it makes a ton of sense. The Bulls don't need Torrey Craig. Torrey Craig probably doesn't want to be there either. He has a player out. Yeah, he has a player option, right? So he probably opts out. But if you put him on the Celtics, he probably opts back in, right? He becomes another like 3-and-D wing defender for him. Torrey Craig had a nice season for the Bulls. The Bulls just don't need him because they shouldn't be trying to win any games at this point anyway. They should be tearing the team down. This is the way to do so. You bring in a Jaden Springer, who you've seen a thing or two from in his young career, gives him a chance to actually maybe get some PT, and the Bulls pick up an extra draft pick. I think that makes a ton of sense. Maybe you could even package like that pick and the other to try and move up in this class, or maybe try to get a 2025 draft pick. Come on, Bulls. Let's just start tearing it down. I think this makes a lot of sense. The Brooklyn Nets, Mikal Bridges and Dennis Schroeder. Okay, I haven't even read the rest of this yet, and I'm already very curious where this is going. For Darius Garland. Whoa, okay, interesting. So two really nice players in Mikal Bridges and Dennis Schroeder for Darius Garland. So in our ideal offseason, we concluded that you probably don't need Garland and Mitchell. I like both of them, and I'd be curious to try and make both of them work, but I think for right now, you don't need both of them. So I don't think it's the worst idea to trade Garland. We actually suggested a Garland for Brandon Ingram swap 1-for-1. I think that just makes a ton of sense. The money works right away. I think you could do it pretty easily. If you got back Mikal Bridges and Dennis Schroeder for Darius Garland, you'd probably feel pretty damn good about yourself. In all honesty, those are two very, very good basketball players. And if the Nets get back a Darius Garland, a young player that they can maybe start to build around, they've been looking for a point guard and they don't have a pick in this year's draft, probably not the worst thing that you could ever do. Darius Garland's going to have to play on a really weird basketball team this next year, but you know what? Like, it's I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, and he can be the primary ball handler again, so I actually don't hate that trade. Next up, the Charlotte Hornets. I see Seth Curry. Seth Curry, the 42nd pick and a 2026 second-round pick to the Los Angeles Lakers for Jalen Hood-Schifino. Okay, why? So Jalen Hood-Schifino had a pretty rough rookie season, and it's not easy to be a rookie for the Lakers when you're playing with LeBron and all these other really experienced players, but like it was a pretty rough rookie season. Like it just didn't even look like he really knew what he was doing out there. Now, I'm not saying for a guy that just went like, whoa, to see like the 17th pick or something like that. For Seth Curry, 42 and another future second, that's probably a good economic move for the most part. Like for a typical 17th pick, from what I saw, I just don't see a lot out of the kid. I know that he flashes some playmaking and some decent size at the point guard and everything. I don't think that that's the best way to use these draft assets or whatever. Personally, I think that I'd rather see them try to develop Trey Mann a little bit more. So I'm going to probably say no to this one. If the Lakers could get Seth Curry and that for Shafino, I'd feel pretty good about that right now. I don't know. I don't really like Shafino personally, but that's just me. You guys let me know what you think. Oh, Chicago Bulls. Oh, please be something good. Please be something good. Nikola Vucevic, Alex Caruso to the Warriors makes some sense for Andrew Wiggins, the 52nd pick in a 2026 first round pick. Okay, at first glance, I really don't dislike this move at all. I think the Bulls need to start tearing things down. I completely understand. The Warriors, this makes them instantly better. They don't have to give up a ton to get him. I think Alex Caruso's worth a first-round pick. I think Vucevic is damn near impossible to trade. If this is how you had to do him, where you're basically just taking Wiggins back, not the worst thing in the world. It's just not worth having Vucevic on the team at this point anyway. Yes, Wiggins isn't going to help the team win anymore either, but at least we get a first-round pick out of it that maybe we could trade to help us get up in the 2025 NBA draft. So I don't hate this move at all. I'd also just like to see Caruso on a team that could use his talents a little bit more on a winning organization. So I'd be happy to see this trade happen. I'd be curious to see Vucevic on this team in general. I feel like they could have some lapses defensively because of this, and I think that there's other centers that you can go get. Nick Richards, but I don't think it's the worst deal at all. Honestly, these have been not too bad so far. Cleveland Cavaliers, Jarrett Allen to the New Orleans Pelicans for Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance, and the 21st pick. No, that's not enough for Jarrett Allen. Man, Jarrett Allen's so good. He's such a good defensive player. His offensive game got so much better. He's just such an energy guy, an attitude guy. He's tough. I don't know. He's good at so many things that you want centers to be good at. And Dyson Daniels is an interesting player that hasn't quite found his position. They need to stop trying to make him a point guard. He's definitely a shooting guard slash small forward, at least in my mind. And I'm not saying he doesn't have some potential, because I'd personally really like to work with him, and I think he'd be valuable in that sense. But the 21st pick in this draft is not all that impressive or anything. And honestly, the 21st pick in most drafts wouldn't be enough for me to trade Jarrett Allen. Larry Nance isn't a great return for it. So you can get more than that for Jarrett Allen. You just could. So I don't think so, but obviously, yeah, if the Pelicans, if they could get the Cavs to do this, then hell yes, do it in a heartbeat. Dallas Mavericks, I'm curious about this one. Josh Green to the Brooklyn Nets for Dorian Finney-Smith. So obviously Dorian Finney-Smith has been on the Mavericks before. He was really, really good for them. I like Josh Green. I love the energy and the hustle that he plays with. I know he's not as good of a three-point shooter as DFS. I don't think it really matters all that much. I'd rather just continue to kind of keep developing Josh Green. He's a little bit younger. His contract's just about to kind of kick in and everything. I'm personally fine with just kind of letting him be as he's going to be for the team. I like the hustle and everything, but if you're the Brooklyn Nets, I think getting Josh Green back would be kind of cool, especially if this exists in the same universe as Darius Garland coming over. I think that'd be a cool little young core that you're starting to kind of build out. Next up, the Denver Nuggets. Oh, snap. Michael Porter Jr. to the Raptors for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, the 31st pick in the 2026 first-round pick, top 4 protected. Oh, all you Nuggets fans that were on my Nuggets ideal offseason that were trade Michael Porter Jr. I know you guys are just wetting yourselves right now. Oh, I'd love to trade him for Bruce Brown. I loved Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown won us a championship. Bruce Brown's a very good basketball player. I don't think you should trade Michael Porter Jr. for him, though. Part of the value of Bruce Brown was because Michael Porter Jr. was on the court, right? And you had that elite floor spacing around him. I just think Michael Porter Jr. is too hard of a player to replace to make it worth trading. I do think this is probably the type of package that you would get back for him, though, is a Bruce Brown, a Kelly Olynyk. I don't think the Raptors are trading Olynyk for what they just got him for. And also, why do they need Michael Porter Jr.? This would be a really weird trade for the Raptors, because it's how many wings are they going to add to this team? This team just always wants 6'9", 6'10" wings. That's all they ever add to their team. But yeah, it probably takes at least this much. It takes that much to get Michael Porter Jr. at a very minimal, I think. But Michael Porter Jr. is a really good basketball player. I wouldn't trade him in my mind. Next up, the Detroit Pistons. I'm curious to hear this one. Beef Stew and Q Grimes. They just got Q Grimes in the number 5 pick for Kyle Kuzma. Ooh, so the Wizards would have 2 top 5 picks. Let's think about this. Does that make sense? Is that an overpay? You're giving up Beef Stew. Don't need Beef Stew, right? Why do the Wizards want Beef Stew? I don't exactly know. You get Q Grimes, which is an interesting young player that's been hurt a little bit, but looks like he'd be a nice like two guard in the NBA, can play a little bit of defense, solid shooter, and you get the number 5 pick. The number 5 pick's what you're really interested in, and then the other guys are kind of just salary fillers. Q Grimes is interesting at the very least. They could use Isaiah Stewart, I guess, as a center. They don't really have a ton of size on the team. I hate that they keep trying to make him play the power forward. He's definitely a small center. They get Kyle Kuzma back, then yeah, no, that'd be interesting at the very least. It'd be really ironic to trade Kyle Kuzma there after everything he said about Detroit and everything, like, you just don't want to be the one, right, or whatever, like, or that guy, however he phrased that. That'd be kind of funny. They probably do need a guy like this that can space the floor a little bit more for him. Obviously, he's a really good scorer. They just need to start winning some basketball games in general in Detroit, so I don't think this is the worst thing to give up in the world. I've been a proponent of saying they should trade the 5th overall pick. There's no more young guys that they can really add that's going to bring enough value to this team, so I don't hate this move at all necessarily for either side. And that way, if you're the Wizards, you can use the 5th pick to go get somebody else. I don't know who exactly it's going to be, but you can go get 2 pretty solid players in the draft then. And that's the hope, I guess. Next up, Golden State Warriors. Andrew Wiggins, yeah, of course Wiggins is going to be involved, to the Toronto Raptors for Kelly Olynyk and Jalen McDaniels. Nah, that's just not worth it. Like, I know they need some bigs and everything, but like the upside of Andrew Wiggins and everything, I know he had a bad season or whatever. People have bad seasons. Like, Andrew Wiggins has always been a solid enough NBA player. Jalen McDaniels is kind of just like, at this point. Like, it'd be interesting for them to add like another 3/4 that can maybe play some defense and try to unlock his potential and everything. But the Warriors haven't exactly been great at developing young talent like in the past couple years, so I don't know why it'd be any different now. But it would be cool to see Andrew Wiggins go to the Raptors just because, again, another Canadian, and also just another 6'8", 6'9" wing to add to the team. Why the hell not? Houston Rockets, what are we doing? Dylan Brooks, Tari Eason, and the number 3 pick to the Portland Trailblazers for Jeremy Grant in the 14th pick. Okay, I got a little scared when I only had read Jeremy Grant, and then I got to the 14th pick, and I kind of see what they're saying. So, like, normally the number 3 pick would get you, like, really, really good player. In this class, it's kind of like, right? For a guy like Jeremy Grant, yeah, that's probably 3rd pick warranted in this draft class at the very least. I've been a big proponent of saying the Rockets should trade the 3rd overall pick, so I'm glad that this was included. They just don't need, they're like the Pistons. They don't need any more young players, so they don't need any more projects. Like, time to start winning some basketball games. Jeremy Grant helps them out defensively, brings a different level of like dynamicness to their team, so I could totally see that. You give up Dylan Brooks, who is kind of like, Tari Eason's kind of lost in the mix on the team, so you give him up to the Trailblazers. Dylan Brooks and Eason, are they really guys that you want around Scoot Henderson? I don't necessarily think it's the best thing in the world. I think you could probably do a little bit better, but the number 3 pick as well, what are you going to do with that then? Hope you get Risa Shea, because you don't need a big necessarily, unless you're going to trade Ayton and you can get Sar clinging with it. I don't know, but I'm glad that the Rockets would also still be getting like the 14th pick, so they could try to take an NBA ready guy like a little bit later, maybe a Devin Carter or something like that. I don't know, but it's not the craziest trade I've ever seen. I don't think it's like perfect necessarily, but I don't hate it. Indiana Pacers, who do we got? Alex Caruso is exactly who I had pop in my head at first too. I don't think it's completely necessary, but let's read it. Jarris Walker, Isaiah Jackson to the Bulls for Alex Caruso. They'd have to give up a little bit more, I think. I feel like for Alex Caruso, for them to consider trading it, you're gonna have to give him a first. I'm obviously a Bulls fan and everything, but like Caruso does so much for an NBA team outside of just like the box score stuff. Like the Pacers fans should know this. They've had TJ McConnell, and obviously in the playoffs he became a box score guy as well. But I don't know. I don't really think it's like something that they necessarily need, because they already have TJ McConnell. You can't have too many of those type of guys in an Alex Caruso. But you give up on Jarris Walker pretty quickly. It's going to be hard for him to get rotation minutes with how this team's designed right now. You lose Isaiah Jackson. That means you probably got to bring like a Jalen Smith back or something, which I don't think you necessarily want to do. So I don't think this one makes like a ton of sense personally, but I understand what they're trying to do to continue to try and build their defense, because their offense was so good and their defense struggled so much. So I understand that. Los Angeles Clippers, Bones Highland to the Charlotte Hornets for Seth Curry and the 42nd pick. Yeah, somebody free my man Bones. I don't know if it makes sense to send him to Charlotte, but I don't know. I just don't think it makes sense to send him to Charlotte. Like Bones Highland, a dude that I've had the pleasure of interacting with before, absolute ray of sunshine. That guy, I love Bones Highland, right? Obviously started off his career really, really good with the Nuggets, ended up getting traded to to the Clippers, and they kind of took his role away because there was just a lot of guys in front of him, right, that were kind of in his position. But really dynamic score. That wasn't the best way of describing that, but like he's a dynamic, energizing backup point guard, right? He's one of those dudes. I think he could go get some buckets for somebody. I don't think moving him to the Hornets makes a ton of sense, but it makes sense for the Clippers to try and get some value out of him. If you brought Seth Curry in, he'd be a nice role player that's a little bit more, I guess, fitting with the players that they have on the team, because he doesn't need the basketball to go help you necessarily. And you get the 42nd pick back. You can use that as a cheap player to fill out the back end of your roster. It's not the worst thing. I just don't know why the Hornets would want to do it necessarily. I feel like they've got like the guards that they want to try and develop for the time being. Next, LA team, the Los Angeles Lakers. Austin Reeves. I don't think they're going to trade Reeves. Rui Hachimura, Jared Vanderbilt, Jalen Hood-Schifino, 2029 first-round pick, 2031 first-round pick to the Miami Heat for Jimmy Butler, Thomas Bryant. Okay, let's break this down. Austin Reeves, Hachimura, Vanderbilt. Those aren't going to help the Heat be in contention. I don't think they're going to do that unless they're getting like a really stud young player back. So that's why Austin Reeves is in the trade, though. You get Jalen Hood-Schifino back as well. You get a couple draft picks for a Los Angeles Lakers team that you have no idea what they look like at this time. They could be really good. They could be bad. You never know. But I don't know. I don't know if that's enough for Jimmy necessarily. These are all quality basketball players. Well, Hood-Schifino hasn't been great up to this point. But and you get some picks. I don't know, like, that would just mean the Heat are blowing it up, obviously, right? So if the Heat just want to blow things up and they're going to make some other moves afterwards, it's not, like, the worst return ever. I don't know if I see Austin Reeves as, like, star young player potential, though. I think it's just the best the Lakers could possibly offer. So I don't love it. Would I like to see Jimmy Butler on the Lakers? Well, of course I would. That'd be really cool. Next up, the Memphis Grizzlies, who I'm really interested in this. Brandon Clark, John Conchar, Zaire Williams, and the number 39 pick for John Collins. Okay, so I don't think John Collins is untouchable. He could come onto the team, like he could play off of other bigs that can stretch and stuff. We've seen that be a thing with Utah. He had a nice season for them this year. So I can kind of see the fit there. I don't think it's the worst fit ever. I think they'd rather have a center personally, but not the worst fit I've ever seen. They trade Brandon Clark, decent young player that's just coming off of decent, no, he's above average for a young player, I would say. Really strong rebounder and everything, just coming off an injury where you could possibly see a loss in like vertical, so you'd have to see how that looked. John Conchar, just kind of a salary filler, but a really nice dude that can go get you like 5, 5, and 5 every night if you really put him out there. Zaire Williams, former number 10 overall pick. You try to develop him. The Jazz need a wing. That makes some sense. And you get another draft pick. Not the worst return for a John Collins. I think you can get some guys that can help you stay competitive as well, because you're probably trying to hold on to Lauri Markkanen and be somewhat competitive. The Jazz never completely bottom out, and I respect them for that. So I don't think it's like a perfect thing, but it's not the worst thing that I've ever seen either. Miami Heat, interesting. Duncan Robinson, the 15th pick to the San Antonio Spurs for Keldon Johnson. Ooh, I like this a lot. The Heat could really unlock Keldon Johnson some more. I've seen too many Spurs fans giving up on this dude. Like, he's already scored 20 points per game, like, in the NBA before. Like, the dude is clearly a nice NBA player. It's just, he had a tough season this year. He had his role changed, like, 3 different times. They were trying to figure out a ton of stuff in San Antonio. Look, there's a reason they lost so many games, right? Like, they were trying out a bunch of things. He's playing with Wembanyama that nobody really knew how to play with at the beginning. Like, yes, he turns the ball over sometimes and he gets tunnel vision at times, but I think he's a really dynamic player. Duncan Robinson over to the Spurs makes some sense. He gives them a little bit of floor spacing. Are they going to need the scoring of Keldon Johnson? Depends on the other moves they make in the offseason, so maybe they would be okay with taking him, and you get the 15th pick. Maybe you could package that pick then with like one of your other ones and move into like next year's picks a little bit more, like push the picks down, because I don't think you need 3 picks in this year's draft class. That just seems unnecessary, but I don't hate this move at all. I'd be curious to see it work out. Milwaukee Bucks, Bobby Portis. They better not trade Bobby Portis. Who else? And Andre Jackson Jr. What are they getting back? To the Golden State Warriors. Ooh, they would love to have those guys for Gary Payton, Moses Moody, the 52nd pick, and the 2026 second. Hell no, they ain't doing that shit. Not for Bobby Portis, man. Like, Bobby Portis has been too big for this team. Andre Jackson Jr. I think will be a nice rotational player for them. I really like his game. No offense to Gary Payton and Moses Moody, nice NBA players in their own right. We'd like to see Moses Moody get an opportunity elsewhere, and I think that's what'll happen. I think they'll trade him somewhere else. I had a theory of Utah personally, but that's just me. And then like those are the picks they get back and everything. Nah, like Bucks are in win now mode. Why would this make them like win now? I don't know. That just seems like they're getting worse. Next up, Minnesota Timberwolves. You're trading Naz Reid for Dyson Daniels and Jordan Hawkins? No. come on, man. No, do you know how this guy's like a folk hero? I live in Minneapolis. I'm not a Timberwolves fan, but this guy's like a folk hero here. For Dyson Daniels and Jordan Hawkins, I like Jordan Hawkins a lot. I think the Pelicans really got something with this guy, and I would not trade him at all. I think you have a really dynamic player there. Dyson Daniels, interesting young player at best. Haven't seen a ton out of him yet, but interesting to me at the very least. They're not trading the sixth man of the year for that. No way, Jose. New Orleans Pelicans again. Brandon Ingram to the Indiana Pacers for Miles Turner. TJ McConnell in the 36th pick. Whoa. So you add another star to the Pacers. You lose your center that was pretty valuable to your team and your play style. I think he'd fit in really well in New Orleans. I think that makes a lot of sense. TJ McConnell, which means you'd let go of Jose Alvarado because he's a restricted free agent and you don't need both of those guys. Even though I would love to see them share the court together. That would be really cool. I'd watch a lot of those games if that was the case. And then you get the 36th pick back with it. I don't know. This just doesn't seem like it's necessary for either teams. I'd feel like I'd rather just keep the continuity that you got so far. So no, I don't really see this one. New York Knicks, what do we got? Mitchell Robinson. Yeah, I know a lot of people want to package him into things to the Golden State Warriors for Gary Payton, Moses Moody, and a 2026 first-round pick. Interesting. I don't think that's like an overpay for Mitchell Robinson. Like, I know Knicks fans are already like, we can trade this guy. Like, we got iHeart or whatever, but I don't know. Like, I don't think that you're forgetting that Mitchell Robinson was like one of the best offensive rebounders we like have ever seen for a minute there, and he's a good shot blocker. Yes, he's got like his limitations like offensively, but this guy's still a really good NBA center at the end of the day. So you get Gary Payton back, you get the first round pick, you get Moses Moody, you continue to kind of build out the depth of this team a little bit. It's just that that's not the positions I feel like you need necessarily. It'd be cool for defensive purposes, and this team always likes to be gritty, and I think you'd get two gritty players back, but I think I'd rather just keep the bouncy 7-footer because those are a little harder to find. Oklahoma City Thunder, Josh Giddey and the 12th pick to the Portland Trailblazers for Anthony Simons. Ooh, I hadn't considered this. So I think Josh Giddey should probably get traded through no fault of his own. I think Josh Giddey's a really, really good NBA player. He's a nice defender. And before you guys get in the comments and tell me he's a bad defender, look up defensive rating stats for once in your life. He's a very good defender. Yes, he doesn't have the most lateral quickness in the world, but he's a very, very smart basketball player. So I just don't want to see any more of those comments. But Josh Giddey, really nice basketball player. Yes, he's not a good shooter or anything yet, but like he should be playing point guard. He should be like a ball handling, defensive, playmaking point guard right now that could hopefully develop his shot a little bit more. He's a really, really good NBA talent. Moving him to the Portland Trailblazers with Scoot Henderson makes zero sense whatsoever. So that just shouldn't happen. Josh Giddey should go somewhere where he should be a starting point guard and everything. But Josh Giddey and the 12th pick for Simons, who... yes, he's shown that he can do things without the ball sometimes, but he can be a little turnover prone, and the Thunder were very turnover prone. No, you just don't need either of these guys swapping teams with each other. Next up, the Orlando Magic, Cole Anthony, Mo Wagner, Joe Ingles, 18th pick for Michael Porter Jr. That's not enough for Michael Porter Jr. It just isn't. Michael Porter Jr., nice defensive player. I know you guys don't want to say that either because he can't move his feet really well, but defensively, he's a really good off-ball defender, and he knows the system. He plays well off of Jokic. He's a great shooter. He's one of the more unique players in the NBA. Don't need to trade him. Would it make sense for the Orlando Magic to have him? Yeah, it makes sense to have him next to Paolo, right? And Franz. It does because you need more shooting on the team. And if that's what you offered and you got Michael Porter Jr. back, I'd say do it. Even though I think it'd be a weird kind of accumulation of your cap space to like load up on all these really big forwards. It just seems kind of odd to me. But no, the Denver Nuggets, I don't think are taking that one. No, thank you. Philadelphia 76ers. They trade the 16th pick for Moses Moody. Maybe. I don't know how much does like Moses Moody make. He's going to be more expensive than whatever the 16th pick is. So I think for that reason alone, they probably don't do it. I wouldn't be surprised if they package the 16th pick into something else, but I also think it'd be a good way for them to fill out the back of their bench with a cheaper player. They can go get maybe like another center, like a Yves Missy or like a Kellel Ware or something, because it's going to be hard to find other backup bigs and stuff. So you could get a younger guy that could come in and have some size and be dynamic, or maybe you could find like an older guy like a Devin Carter. I've seen a lot of Sixers fans say they want him, and I think that makes a ton of sense. So I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's kind of an appropriate value scale for both, so I don't hate it. Phoenix Suns, ooh, what are we doing here? Damian Lee, 22nd pick for Marcus Sasser. Oh, I like this one. So the Pistons get another draft pick because they don't. Here's the thing: they don't play Mark. They didn't play Marcus Sasser like at all for whatever reason, even though he was like really dynamic whenever he was on the court. So the Suns need a point guard. You guys don't want your point guard? Fine, we'll give you draft assets and Damian Lee, who's an established veteran player. I don't know if they say yes to that. Like, hopefully they'd value him more than that, but maybe they don't. I think this trade would be really interesting, and I would love to see Sasser on the Suns. I think that'd be really, really cool. Portland Trailblazers. All right, what are we doing to make Scoot Henderson's life easier? Please prioritize it that way. Malcolm Brogdon's on his way out. That makes some sense to the Orlando Magic for Jet Howard, Joe Ingles in the 18th pick. I don't hate that, honestly. Like, Jet Howard had a pretty abysmal rookie season, didn't really see the floor much at all, and he didn't do the thing he's supposed to do in the NBA, and that's shoot well. But he's young, right? He's really young. Joe Ingles, just a nice vet that'll, again, come in, be a shooter, another ball handler if you need to. Cool. You don't even have to give him his money if you don't want to, right? Because it's an option, so you can free up some cap space. Cool. You move on from Brogdon. That makes sense. You get the 18th pick, so you could go draft somebody else that could hopefully help you start to win a little bit now. Maybe, again, you can go get one of those run, jump, and dunk bigs to play with Scoot Henderson because he's so good in the pick and roll. That's cool. The Orlando Magic get Malcolm Brogdon. Would be a nice point guard for them. Does he become their starting point guard? Yeah, I'd say he does. And then Suggs moves over to the 2. I could see that. Like, you still have a good defensive team. You add another shooter to the roster. Yeah, no, I don't think this is the worst trade ever. I kind of like it. Sacramento Kings. Oh, why is Jimmy Butler here? Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, Davion Mitchell, 13th pick, first round pick in 2028, first round pick in 2030 to the Miami Heat. Oh, okay. Again, if the Miami Heat are going to blow it up, you get 2 guys with like 2 years left on their contracts. I guess you could try to use them as like bait in the middle of the season to try and like give someone else a decent role player. You get Davion Mitchell. It's an interesting option, but you have to figure out if you're going to pay him in a single season. You get the 13th pick. You also have the 15th pick already. Are you able to package both of those to move up in this draft and get someone you want? Maybe. And then you get a couple first-round picks for a team that could be dog water by that time. So that's interesting in itself. If the Heat just wanted to blow things up, which they don't ever do, it's them like the Jazz and the Pacers that don't ever like bottom out completely. I think that'd be interesting. For a sense of realism, I don't think that's going to happen, but it's not the worst haul in the world for Jimmy Butler that I've seen. So, something to think about at the very least. San Antonio Spurs, whoa. Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham, Zach Collins, Blake Wesley, the 4th pick, the 8th pick, 2025 first-round pick via Atlanta. That could be really valuable. 2027 first-round pick via Atlanta could still be valuable. To the Phoenix Suns for Devin Booker. Whoa. Okay, so I'm on the side of let's not accelerate this whole Spurs rebuild. You've done a really good job so far. You got some interesting young players, and you have your franchise player, right, and Victor Wembanyama. Let's let the team grow a little bit organically. I like Devin Vassell a lot. I like Sohan a lot. I think that there's some really interesting things going on in the roster. I don't think you need to add Devin Booker, who's trying to win championships right now, to this team. It's going to accelerate it too quickly. Like let's just grow this thing organically, right? Let it sprout like a flower, right? The Suns get a lot back for it. That means they're probably trading Durant as well, and they just try a rebuild. If they're trying to blow things up, pretty solid return all said and done for them because you get a ton of really valuable picks, so I guess I can't hate on it for that reason. But if I'm the Spurs, I don't think it needs to be done right now. I just don't think it does. Toronto Raptors, okay, they're trading Bruce Brown. You guys better not give them another 6'5" wing. Bruce Brown for Andrew Wiggins. Just stop it. Bruce Brown on the Warriors would be really, really cool. He'd be a perfect Golden State Warrior, in my opinion. I think he makes a lot of sense there. Trading Andrew Wiggins for him, yeah, no, they'd probably do that in that instance. I guess you get something for Bruce Brown in this sense. I don't know why the Raptors necessarily want Andrew Wiggins. Are the Raptors rebuilding, or like what are they doing? I don't think any of us actually know. Stop trying to trade like 6'8", 6'9" wings to these guys. All right, 2 more left. The Utah Jazz. Yep, they're trading John Collins and the 29th pick and the 32nd pick to the Miami Heat for Duncan Robinson and Caleb Martin. Wait a second. John Collins, the 29th pick, the 32nd pick for Duncan Robinson and Caleb Martin. You're giving up the best player in this trade and picks. Okay, I'm confused. So they're basically saying the Jazz just don't need these picks. So you just throw them in. That I don't know. I don't like that logic at all. I just really don't. And like John Collins had a pretty solid season for the Jazz, all said and done. So like, yeah, no. Do you need to keep him? No, I'd probably say you should trade him. But for like this and the picks, like no, just make a separate trade for those. Like I would think Duncan Robinson and Caleb Martin for John Collins is a solid trade in itself. So no, doesn't make much sense to me. But let's do one last one. The Washington Wizards. Kuzma in the 26th pick for Jared Allen. Now that's a little bit more interesting for a Jared Allen type return. So let's presume that they've traded Garland at this point for like a McCall Bridges or something. So you would have Donovan Mitchell. Is Karis LeVert still on the team? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. And then you've got McCall Bridges, Kuzma, Emob. It's a pretty dynamic team. There's a lot of things you could do with that. You could switch 1 through 5 damn near if you needed to, so that'd be kind of cool. And what do the Wizards get back? They get back Jared Allen. It's like, what would the Wizards be doing then? Like, they've just got Jared Allen and like Jordan Poole on this weird, ugly team that they're building. Denny's there, and Denny's kind of cool. I don't know. Like, I think the Wizards would just need to pick a direction more than anything else. But I mean, if you could get Jared Allen back for Kuzma, that's cool. You could try to flip him again, maybe, and get a little more out of him. But I don't know. Just doesn't seem to make a ton of sense for the Wizards necessarily, but I think it'd be interesting if Cleveland was really trying to shake things up this offseason. But yeah, no, that's one trade for every NBA team. Let me know what you guys think your favorite trade is, and give me your trade ideas in the comments. I love to evaluate those. Know that if I'm like discrediting them in the comments or anything, I'm not hating on you guys. I'm just explaining my thoughts. So just know that, and hey, I appreciate you guys watching as always. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.